All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to First World Third Rails. Your host, Marlon Taylor, aka Mayhem, aka Mr. Disruptive, with my partner in crime, JD Wilson Jr., aka JD. We are excited because we are blessed to have a guest on our podcast this morning, Bernadette Risley.
Well, I am so happy to be here. I think the energy is already a given with you two. Thanks for meeting me.
Thank you for coming aboard. And let me just start out today. We'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, tell our one or two listeners a little bit about yourself. But let me start the podcast by wishing you again a very big happy birthday. Today is Bern's birthday, so happy birthday.
Yay. Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah.
To be 26. I would kill to be 26 again.
I know. No matter how those numbers run, who cares?
That's right. That is right. So Bern, if you would give us a little 30,000 foot view of who you are, what you do, and whatever else you would like to share with our listening audience and JD and myself.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I am a mom of 4 adult children. I have 3 grand doggies, so I'm very proud of that. And I started off my career back in like the mid 90s, I guess. Even before then, I was kind of an entrepreneur, opening up a travel agency in Atlanta with my first husband. And then when we moved back to New Jersey, I got an opportunity to work with someone who was just let go from the big AT&T, that the big bells all broke up, Telecom Act of 1996. And he had this like incredible idea to sell training back to the bells, because there was a problem with billing. And this thing took off like I can't even tell you. He was making hand over fist, and I was out there selling for him. I was selling to the KPMGs, the EDSs, all the big system integrators. And then what happened is I just started to kind of work with that telecom expense management industry, and then software as a service started to become a thing. So being in sales and software as a service, it was the new shiny penny on the block. And kind of moved into one of the companies I was working for, got bought by IBM. And when I got into IBM, I was a little curious about what was happening with all the cloud companies that they had just purchased. And I had an opportunity to start a training, some of the account managers on what it looks like on the other side, because a lot of these small companies were like, oh, we just got bought up by Big Blue, and we didn't want to work with a big company, so they needed to understand the value and still stick around. And so I started a global mentorship program within IBM. I did a lot of presentations for their cloud academy, got people to understand what it meant to deliver value, what it meant to have a subscription-based sort of post-sale process. And then, I stayed there for a good, 4 or 5 years or something like that, still stayed in the telecom expense management. And then I thought to myself, I just wanted to learn some new technology. I mean, that's not the only one. And right. I had an interesting, tenure with Citrix, which is virtualization software. And that was real fun. I got into management, built several different teams that were from the ground up, because in 2017, they were just starting their customer success practice. And so we started with taking care of enterprise, and then they put somebody else in front of enterprise to run that team, so I could build the mid team, or they called it commercial at the time. And so I built the commercial team and had several individuals reporting to me that were taking care of customers all over the country, and internationally, in Canada as well. And move along, did some work for another company where I built the whole customer success practice, but they had some layoffs, and I was part of that layoff. all this time, probably about 2 years ago, I had entered a coaching program. And one of the reasons, people would say, well, why that? Why didn't you take macrame class or pottery or something, Um,
Well, leadership macrame.
Right,
yes.
right, right,
Maybe, yeah.
right.
So I just really, I thought there has to be something that I can do when I felt or wanted, either it was going to be my decision or a decision, due to circumstance, that I can actually work with the same network of people. So corporate space, right? That's what I know. And help build a better practice of what it really means to communicate, what it really means to have the right type of collaboration when you are leading people. So, when I say that, I'm saying it with tongue in cheek, because throughout my career, being a single mom, I bypassed the bad management that I was in front of because I had a different North Star. I wasn't about to lobby or be an activist for what my boss said to me, because I had to put food on the table, right? So it was my kids and my quota. I always said, don't mess with my kids, don't mess with my money. And those are my two rules that I kind of lived by for years. Now my kids get older, they're in college or here, there, whatever, they can make their own peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And now I'm like, now my eyes are bigger. I'm seeing it. And now I'm a manager myself. And I thought to myself, oh my God, could this possibly be leadership? And then I'm like, I can't do that to the people that are reporting to me.
Right.
And so I started to self-teach myself. I had some great authors I loved. This is during 2020 now. Started to self-teach, and then I hired an executive coach. And this woman was incredible. And I said, I need to have a voice. I said, I need to find out how I can have better influential communication when I am in a room with people who I report to. And we started with that, but we obviously worked on so many other different things. And I was able to create a good enough environment for my own people, but obviously the reality of, you need to do this, KPIs change, this changing, and I would continue to put in front of them ways that they still continue to feel motivated, right?
Yep.
So, so I wanted to start this coaching program, which I did. A lot of it was self-paced. Some of it was not face-to-face, but where you had to be on virtual and stuff like that. And when I did get let go, I kind of doubled down so I could get my certifications. But while looking for a job, I felt that, I was still angry.
Yeah.
Let's just put it out there, right? I had a six-figure income.
Could you say that again slowly?
I was still angry. So here I am, so this was last year. Last year I was 61, because today I'm 62. So I guess I was 61 last year. And and I was let go, and I had a six-figure income. My kids are all married. It's just my husband and I. So I can fly and go to Colorado and see my son and his wife, or I could go to New York and see my other son. And someone messed with my money and my kids again. Right. So that all came back. And so with my own skills that I had learned, but also with some additional coaching from my coach, I had to really get in a better mindset to take some of these recruiting calls, to take some of these hiring manager calls. Well, lo and behold, I didn't get any offers, and decided at the beginning of the year to start a practice of coaching. And my niche is really to help. Now, I don't know really if the market is serving me well to try and figure out like why CEOs and that whole C-suite still has a mindset that they may say they're customer centric. They may say they're giving the best employee experience, but I don't believe they really know how. Okay.
I agree.
But what I can do is the ones that are entering, like I'll give you an example, entering corporate right now. If you are in corporate, like say your third or fourth year in a corporate position, right?
Mhm.
That means your first 2 years were COVID. You were virtual,
Right,
right?
right.
So there's a real need for people to for that group to understand how to communicate and how to have foundational knowledge about things that are available to them. What's available to them is they can have, open and transformative conversations with their leaders. They also, will have areas that they may want to learn something different outside of their own job. I think I wrote a blog about, build your own swim lane.
Right.
These are things that they're not equipped with that knowledge right now. And if, so one of the things I'm trying to do is figure out, like, what can I do to help that group right now become more equipped, that no matter where they jump from,
Right.
job to job, there's something foundational that they feel they have enough self-confidence and courage to use those foundational skills to get them the type of career and the type of advancement that they want.
That is exceptional and well needed, to your point. That
Justin.
you, what's that?
So much
What?
there.
Yeah, there's a
No.
lot.
But that's a well needed niche, because she's 100% right. If you're in your fourth, fifth year of corporate life, that first two, it's almost as if it was non-existent. It existed, but the skill sets that you would have developed in those first 2 years normally aren't there. And so that's a gap that needs to be filled. And I commend you for having that focus and understanding and being able to provide solutions in that space.
Thank you. And so, like, just, kind of turning the corner again, you both know this is a very new thing for me, starting a business. It's funny. One trend that I've seen throughout my life is I kind of feel that courage is something that I do well with. And I think the reason why I do well is because I have no freaking idea what I'm getting myself into. Right. And I think where my resilience comes from is the carrying it out. So,
right.
like, oh yeah, like I'll do something and then I'm like, are you kidding me? I have to get an email subscriber platform. What is that? And then it's a what is that for months, learning something new every day.
So, Bernadette, are you intent on coaching individuals to improve themselves or improve their skill set in the context of an organization? And they overlap, but if you're doing Venn diagrams, they're separate. Which is your primary objective? Because there's value in both. And obviously you possess insights, exceptional insights into the collaboration with an organization skill set.
So there's a couple of things that you can unpack with that. So when you talk about coaching, maybe just take it back just a quick step. Coaching is the path forward. So it's a little bit different from mentor, which both Marlon and I do on another platform. And it's very different from therapy, which is dealing with the past, right? So when I mentioned earlier, I wanted a coach because what was going on in my head is I don't know that path, but I know I want to get there and I'm willing to pay for it because it means that much to me.
Mhm.
So I needed to improve myself and my knowledge of how I can be a better leader. When you talk about organizational skills or skill set, if that's something when a client comes to me and says, oh, I want to learn how to do, like, I don't know, maybe there's a lot of spreadsheets or, that they need to do for their job and they're really not good at Excel, coaching them to find the answers of what they can do to be better at that. So coaching is really coaching the person for them to find the answers, and then for them to carry them out and do the work.
Okay, so that was intriguing. I've never heard it put that way. Coaching versus mentorship versus therapy. Therapy is in the past, it's personal.
Now,
Yep.
mentorship, just because I didn't give you that kind of side-by-side view, mentorship is like, Marlon's been there, done that. He's had a lot of experience. Marlon will go ahead on a platform and there'll be someone that wants to talk to Marlon and say, well, you've done this, this, and this. How did you do it? But what's really important for a mentor is for the mentor to actually provide a call to action and say, okay, so now mentee, I want you to go out and do those things, and let's meet and let's see how that went for you.
Mhm.
So it's not just like, a conversation because Marlon's this awesome person. That was a great conversation. It really does. The mentor needs to provide call to action in order for that person to grow in a mentor situation. So that's what mentoring is.
Yep.
So is the coach then more skills than call to action? In other words, is the mentor?
Good question. So in a coaching situation has the same thing. It allows the coach to let the client lead. Now the client has the opportunity to lead in a way where they are going to reach that particular goal for that particular session and provide accountability for themselves. It may be more than one session before they get to that, because there might be some things that, might be some limiting beliefs that we need to work on in order for them to move some step out of that path. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Right. Yeah.
It does. The challenge is just off the charts. I have many thoughts, but where should we go? Where should we go? Because let me just float something,
Yeah.
but I don't want to go to it. I just want to float it. I just want to put it out
Okay.
there. And I'm going to do a little personal story,
Okay.
a little bit similar to what you did, but I'll keep it brief. So on December 12th, 2022, so that's last year, December, I received an email from my primary customer. It says, we're not moving forward with your contract in 2023. So that was like, ugh. Now the reasons they gave were all provided by people I'd never met. So there had been a change of leadership and they're like, well, we're taking this a new direction. You've been there. We've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Nonetheless, it was a massive blow. And then I was like, well, that doesn't matter because I'm going to do a presentation on December 19th for a massive new contract. And I did that pitch and it was an hour and a half. And I discovered in the last 7 minutes that my internal champions who had been basically commissioning all the work I did for them. I did 6 months worth of work for them. And what I showed them on December 19th worked perfectly and was exactly what they wanted. But my champions had not articulated to their executive management that I was a small company. And I was competing against Kyndryl, sound familiar? Microsoft, and various other multi-billion-dollar corporations. So they waxed me on December 19th. At the end of that call, they didn't say you're out, but I've been around long enough, I could feel it. I was too small. We rolled over into the first of the year, and I have written a product over a decade, and I wrote it on a technology. On January 1st, 2023, this year, that was deprecated. So I ended up with the 3 strikes and you're out phenomena, which is I lost my current contract, I lost my future contract, and I lost all the work I'd done for the past decade. In other words, the work was still viable, but it wasn't sellable.
Mhm.
And you know what they say there, but for marketing goes my success. In other words, it's only loosely coupled between how good your product is and whether there'll be uptake. In the first quarter of this year, general availability to OpenAI and ChatGPT was announced. Now, I can tell you from my perspective, and this is the fractal I want to introduce, but I don't think we have to follow it immediately. Almost everything about my past, which is I have a long past, I'm an old guy. It just exploded. It just was absolutely, everything I had done was destroyed. Now, here's the good part. So was everything everybody else had done.
Yep.
It was literally like dropping a neutron bomb.
Yep.
And everybody was back to zero. Now, there are participants who've been in this field of artificial intelligence and decoder transformers for the past 2-3 years, and we have a general idea who they are. So they have the first mover
Head start.
But for the rest of humanity, this whole thing just went and blew it up, which means that I get a reset, which means I think your world is different. I could be wrong. I don't want to project into your world, but I think I'm talking about the entire world, where, using the Venn diagram again, we're all subsets of the entire world. There are a lot of things that were in your overview that I believe are exploded. And a lot of them have to do with work ethic and the way people approach things. And there are a lot of behaviors that are attributed to the pandemic, but they're really latent behaviors that are associated with a new perspective from a new generation. I have witnessed human evolution in textbooks, which is physical, moving through the different temperate, belts and moving into the colder temperatures and coming across the land bridge 18,000 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. But I've also personally witnessed a reshaping of perception on the part of young people, some of the young people who might require coaching. Again, I'm not coming into your area, I'm just telling you what I'm observing. And they're developing skills that we don't possess. And I think that the skill that they're developing is around truthiness. So what I know is that my generation is now leaving the playing field. There are more baby boomers than ever before. And my generation, particularly my sex, white males, are predatory creatures. We have ravaged the land and we're leaving. We have our 401ks, we have our IRAs, we have our houses that we bought at this amount that are now worth this amount. And even the folks who have mismanaged their lives. And I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years, so that would characterize as mismanagement because it's just so uneven. But I still get out relatively scot-free. And this new generation is looking at this and they're saying, okay, the predators are leaving the field, but they're leaving behind essentially the detritus of their
behavior.
And their behavior is absolutely fascinating to me. And so we're not going to get into the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court just got rid of affirmative action and they just said, we're not going to be paying your student debt. So I don't want to talk about those things, but I would like to explore what happens to a young person living in this world. And I happen to have two. I have a millennial, 26, and I have a Gen Z, 23. And their perception of the world is actually fundamentally different. And where I wanted to go with this is I think they're looking for some truths, plural, and they don't get them from us. Our generation doesn't say we are predators, we have ravaged the land, and we're leaving you with a mess. We joke about it, but we don't really take it seriously. And a lot of the skill sets that we treat as positive, like work ethic, they're like, you didn't have work ethic, you just worked. That's just what you did. You were just working, and none of the predators who were in charge afforded you any quality of life. So you're really, all you could do is go get money and try to balance that with your personal life. Well, the truth for us, we're seeking a different truth. And with AI, now that everything's exploded, we're going to be looking at invisible failure. There are going to be so many failures on so many fronts, and all of the predators like me and like the next generation is going to try to systematically remove costs to improve their bottom lines. And it's going to be an absolute bloodbath.
Yeah.
How do you coach that? I'm not challenging you. I'm asking.
And you,
I think it's fundamentally different. I don't think.
I'm anxious to get Bern's answer on that. You and I disagree when it comes to that work ethic trait. I respect the fact that that's how they view it, but corporations are still prioritizing to some degree older workforce because they know the work ethic is there. They know, you're right, work-life balance was non-existent in our heyday. We did what we had to do. But there's a component of that I take pride in, I talk about. I've said it in every interview I've had that, yeah, you'll have somebody come through the door who knows Excel better than me, somebody who knows PowerPoint better than me, but you won't have somebody come through the door that has the work ethic that I do. And that's not.
I completely disagree with that.
That's not Marlon working hard or working extra because he's fearful of losing his job. I'm always fearful of losing my job. I'm a minority. I do it because that's the only way I've known how to function in the professional world, in professional life. I'm a hard worker because that's my DNA.
Well, I'm not trying to diminish that you're a hard worker. I've known you for decades, and you are truly one of the hardest workers I've ever met. When I wake up on the East Coast, you're already awake on the West Coast.
True.
It's been like that for decades. I'm like, how the hell does he do that? And I'm about to go to bed, and I'm like, hey, Marlon, and you're like, you're there. I'm like, I don't even know how he does that. So yeah, you're one of the hardest workers I know. The part that we disagree on, though, is that this next generation doesn't possess a work ethic. And I'm going to argue or submit, it's just an opinion, that a lot of the things that we laud about our generation's quote unquote work ethic are perversions that we've been obligated to deal with because of the predatory nature of almost everything we do, with a few exceptions. All of us has tripped across a situation where the person we work for actually cared. They're few, they're far between.
They're few, far between.
Fondly. But this truthiness that I'm talking about is, I think this next generation is starting to see, like, if they look at a guy like me, I don't look the way I did to somebody who might report to me back 30 years ago. I look very different. I look transparent. They can see my skeleton. They know that every single decision that I take will be predicated on, when I say me, I mean my people. My people, every single decision that we make will be predicated on profit. Now, let me give you a specific example. There was everybody was like, okay, for like marketing purposes, let's embrace ESG, which is environmental, societal, and governmental. Let's do that. And we're going to start putting out statements, or we're going to start focus groups and all kinds of stuff. And corporations did that. And a lot of it happened during the pandemic because there was extra time to. That ESG is just being wiped off the slate. It's like, it hasn't produced any damn benefits for us, so we're just wiping it. It's going away. And the references to ESG from the corporate statements 3 to 5 to 4 years ago have gone from like 100% to 11%. In other words, they're almost non-existent. And this behavior is repeated over and over and over and over again, and it's veiled behind different new marketing initiatives
Right.
that are meant to cast some type of positive glow on our money-grubbing predatory organization. And that's what I think is changing with this next generation. They're seeing right through it. Now, they haven't figured out how to deal with it because we still, our generation and the ones that follow immediately, still hold most of the power. We control most of the equity. We control most of the major senior positions. And a really good analogy of this is in India. India is different than the US. And I'll stop
Yep.
after this because it actually illustrates it. It illustrates it to a T. In India, the rise was fairly recent, and it started with business process outsourcing. And what Americans have done is they essentially said, you know, we can get this for less overseas. So what they did is they pushed everything overseas, and that's happened over the last 2-3 decades.
Right.
The first movers in India, right? The first movers in India who started 30 years ago, they're still in their 50s. Now, we actually have people who have moved all the way through. They're now in their 70s, and they have to get out. They have to go off and take all their money and go to Lake Tahoe.
Right. Right.
But in India, they're in a huge pickle because the human beings who occupy the upper echelons of management are still in their late 40s, early 50s.
Early 50s. Yep.
And they're not going to budge. So this is what I'm talking about. A young person coming into that environment in India, if you look at some of the behaviors that they have, they are very specifically saying, we cannot get opportunities, so we're going to have to create our own. And that would be characterized as a lack of work ethic, which means somehow it's always interpreted as unwillingness to work diligently for somebody else's objectives. And they're by necessity, they're having to create their own things. So that's the curiosity to me. Are you talking about a second act, which is older people trying to reinsert into the contemporary environment? Or are you talking about young people trying to find a purpose and a place in this environment? Are you differentiating between men and women? Because men and women, the projections are that 60% of the impact of AI will be with women, because women are usually in those types of roles where they're managing the day-to-day affairs of the business and connecting, putting tab A in slot B. And they're saying that AI is going to disproportionately affect women. So I'm not challenging you. I'm just really curious.
Yeah,
How do you
I'm
make
trying to
sense
figure
out
out
of
like
all of
which
this?
you've got tons of questions out there that I'm
Yeah, I
not
know.
sure
Sorry.
to answer.
I'll see you your tons of questions, and I'll raise you a ton of my
And
own.
raise you a ton.
So here's the thing, one of the and I'm going back like way back from when you had started talking, and you said something about teaching the corporate space and people in the corporate space, you know, how to show up and how to show up and serve, which is what they're being, you know, hired to do. Versus that one-on-one coaching, which I kind of gave you a little bit more detail. So one of the programs that I have is called SERVE, and it's an acronym that I use for sincerity, empathy, respond with care, vulnerability, and expert. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because part of it is what I see JD and Marlon is this generation has to do more, and kind of like the tail end of baby boomers, the ones that are still out there that think, hey, I've been in sales for 25 years, I'm still working. One of the things that I think is happening is those that differentiate themselves as, like, for example, you looked me up. Even though my LinkedIn is under construction, you went and you found anything you could find, and you could find stuff about me and learn stuff about me. In the environment of social media and the technology and AI, okay, you can't find out how old someone is on AI. Thank God for that, because I tried it a few times. Anyway, it is a person has to understand that they are an expert in their own shoes, even at the age of 30, even at the age of 23, even at the age of 26. And
Is
the
that a
reason
truth
is
though? Is that a truth you would tell somebody?
Yes.
just
But is
hear
it-
me out, hear me out.
Oh,
So understanding that whatever it is you're equipped with, that is the value that you bring to that organization. And that value and that person needs to stand alone outside of a piece of software attached to their arm or a service that they need to sell or they need to upsell. They need to be first an expert in their own shoes. They need to show value that if you went onto LinkedIn and you were going to hire someone who is 23, and then there's another person who's 30, okay, but the 23-year-old is sharing information that maybe they saw that was really valuable, that might be something in their industry, but may not be something that they wrote right then. But
Mhm.
maybe, it's all about how they perceive themselves, okay? They feel, I'm not saying not everyone, but they feel their expertise needs to come from someone else. Okay, that person told me that, now I'm an expert. No, they have to derive the knowledge that is going to feed them and make them feel that this is the path and this is really interesting to me and I'm motivated by learning more about this. And that's where this person becomes formed. And through social media, they can put that perception out there where I don't work for, or I may work for company ABC, cybersecurity solution, but my name is Bern Risley. And here's some information that I'd like to share with you because, I've seen this with some other customers or whatever. I mean, or you could share something that is just in the industry alone and has
Yep.
nothing to do with it.
Yep.
If I'm ever connected to another company in the future, if I ever decide to go back full time, I will always be on LinkedIn as my authentic self before anything else. In fact, the rule of thumb is that when you do share a post, and then, I have a company page on LinkedIn as well, you always share it from your personal page, and then you share it to your group and to your company profile. And that's what's going to differentiate these kids to understand. And it's really just, it's a learning. It's for them to understand that they are good enough just now, right?
Yep. Yep. It's about, and I talk about this all the time in the mentorship program, it's about building your brand, right?
Yeah.
Your brand is what's critical. In the 1,000 years ago, JD, when you and I worked together, we didn't even have a Google back then, but you would go, that's how you would learn about JD. I'm going to hire JD. I'm going to go Google him and see what I know about him. Now I'm going to LinkedIn. I'm looking at JD. What kind of brand has he built for himself? What kind of brand has Marlon built, has Bern built for herself? Because if they can't
That's
build
what
a
they're
brand,
looking at. Mhm.
if they can't build a brand for themselves, how are they going to improve and
Right.
build upon my brand?
I just want to touch on what you just said because my ex-husband is 11 years older than me. Okay. He was also a famous runner. So, he had a record running up the Empire State Building stairs. He was on 2 Olympic teams, but it happened to be the 2 teams. One was boycotted and the other one, I forget, something like that. It was like in the 70s. And he was working for a company in New Jersey that exclusively sold the Adidas brand. Okay. And there was somebody after him. There was somebody completely after his job. He did all the he liaised between athletes and getting them to wear the brand. Okay. And so I went to the 1984 Olympics, the first time that the Olympics actually had corporate sponsors, right?
Yep.
And I met Jackie Joyner Kersey. I met all the runners, and Greta Weiss was at my wedding. Greta and Jack Weiss were at my wedding.
Wow.
So I guess what I'm trying to, when he was let go, he was not a human anymore. it killed him. I mean, that generation, they made their job them. And that's very, 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 it's dangerous. And
It
I
is.
think,
Can we pause for just a moment? I won't go off
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
different direction. But what you just did is I don't know what you just did. I'm telling you what I'm observing.
yeah,
Well, I don't want to say this is what you did, or one of the things that I was floating was that it's not that the work ethic has changed, it's that the search for which is the truth has changed. So what you just did is you articulated a very specific example of an individual who would have been considered to have an exceptionally high work ethic. And then you described how there was a cost associated with this exceptionally high work ethic, which had been interpreted as disintegrating your persona into the corporation that you represent. I encountered this once, a guy who worked for me. He went to work and he became a fellow at HP. And I saw him at a show and he said, I work for this little company now. You may have heard of them. And it was HP. And in that instant on that floor, you remember when they used to do conventions and stuff? Remember that,
oh,
Marlon?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Trade shows.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, dude,
Posse.
you're lost in that company now. So I think what you just described about your ex-husband and his relationship to work, which would have received a positive treatment from my generation, would be perceived transparently as a real liability and a high cost with the current generation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I don't know what the reconciliation for your
So
husband
I
in
guess
terms
what
of
I'm
dealing with
trying
the
to
loss
say,
of that job
we
was.
did, yeah. So
But
I
I don't see that type of they don't want to be disintegrated into another entity, which goes to the other point that you were making, is that you exist independently of
only
whatever it
recently
is you're
though,
seeking.
JD, only
Yeah.
recently learning that that's exactly it. I think what that Gen Z and millennial group is doing is they are doing that. They need, and so to my point, which I kind of got off to over there. Okay, to my point, I'm going to give you a live example. So I had two friends call me. They were both let go from the same company. And I said, how many of that team was let go? Oh, almost half. Give me a few names of those that are still there. So I go onto LinkedIn and I look them up. And then I go and I look up the two people that were let go. And the ones that are still there are sharing information. They're posting things. They're liking other information. They have a voice, and a voice that is not, it's their voice. It's not the voice of the company. Right. So
Right,
they've
right.
created brands.
Right.
And so I'll give you that. And so then the other two, let me tell you what happens. And and I've learned this as well. When I got let go last year, tell me what I did between January 2022 to when I got let go. Ask me what I did on LinkedIn.
What'd you
The
do?
only thing I did was update my experience. Did I post? Did I look to see who was, I did not. That's what happens.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
so, our generation, we get so deep in, oh, I got a job. I got to put 200% into it. This is what we think. And we forget, okay, we got hired to do a job. And yes, we might be reporting to the same people who think that I want 200% of your time, which was someone I felt that way as well. And I actually had to defer my coaching program. I deferred it only to find out like 6 months later, they let me go anyway.
Right. Right.
So my point is probably not being made very well, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that when I do have the opportunity to work with a team to work with a group, I am going to tell them what I see. I'm going to tell them that before you work for this company, you are already an expert. What value are you bringing to the company before you go and talk to a customer? What value can you bring to the customer before you talk about the product?
Right, right, right.
And that's really, that's just a better way to be.
I'm 100% aligned with that because that's how I function, and JD knows that's how I've functioned throughout my entire career.
Well, I'm trying to, it's like when you're panning for gold and the water's running by and so there's the things you can control and the things you can't control,
Right.
right?
And the focus
And
needs
so
to
it
be
sounds
on
like
what
from a
you can.
coaching standpoint, there would be benefit in reminding somebody to definitely don't shortchange the things you can control.
Right.
And the things you
Bingo.
can control are necessarily just because of the way the human organizations are constructed. It starts with you. So you would try to emphasize, elevate, optimize the things you can control that are then perceived by others in an organization.
So I had a
That seems
conversation.
valuable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, what was
Yeah.
the serve? The serve was sincerity.
Oh, sincerity, which is, because it's an S, is sincerity, but that authentication, being authentic, right? It's sincerity. E is empathy. And when I talk about empathy, I talk about empathy more for yourself, because we tend to beat ourselves up. Oh, I should have sent that email. Empathy for the person that you're speaking to as well. And what's important about that is when you're in a conversation with a customer, all you're doing is turning your wheels, thinking, I got to get this agenda out. I got to get this. I got to get this out. And you're never thinking about what's going on with the customer. So empathy, responding with care, right? You have a conversation with someone, respond with care. Like it, no, make sure there's no judgment in when you respond, oh, I'm sorry you couldn't make it to the call, no, respond. I hope you're well. I'm sorry you couldn't make it to the call, whatever. Respond with care. V is vulnerability. Very difficult for a lot of people.
Yep.
I'll tell you right now that I've had
Sincerity, empathy. What was R again?
respond with care, respond.
Respond with care.
And then V is vulnerability.
Hold
And
on a
then,
second. I need to close my window. Keep going.
okay. And then E is expert. But like I had a director tell me, hey, you leave your feelings at home, no feelings in the office. I'm not saying lead by your feelings, but don't feel that you can't, say, hey, I could have said that a better way, or whatever it is. If you lead people, you have to let them understand that they can also be that way with you. And so in
Yep.
order to do that, you have to lead that way.
Yep.
Like I had someone report to me, and she said, Bern, she goes, I just need to know how I'm being measured. Like she goes, you're all over the place. You're like squirrel. I just need to know, how am I measured?
What
And
are the
like,
KPIs that are most important for
right.
me to keep my job?
And
Right.
the funny thing was, I was actually leading by what I was not getting from corporate, because corporate didn't have it. And I said, oh my God, this is all this person needs. I'll just give my team KPIs.
Right. Right.
This is how you're going to be measured. And it was just such a light bulb to understand. I'm like, gosh, that's great. I said, let's sit down and let's talk about it and let's see what the team thinks. It's just
Mark of a good manager.
yeah, I mean,
And I've seen the opposite of that. I've lived the opposite of that. So I recognize it when I see it, which is why I just said it.
yeah.
Well, what's interesting is a lot of people, when people say he's a bad manager, I say he's a normal manager. There are
Women
really
say
very
that.
few very bad managers. Almost all of the managers are normal. And normal is not good. In other words, normal is not nurturing. Normal is not.
Normal is bad.
Um,
Normal is bad.
okay, so I got sincerity, empathy, respond, V,
Vulnerability.
vulnerability.
And E, expert. Be your
And
own
E,
expert.
so if you show up in SERVE, if you show up and use your SERVE acronym, you are an expert in your own right, utilizing all the things that will bring you meaningful conversations, both with your internal teams and with your customers and your management.
I
And
like that.
there's actually a course, it's called the 3 C's: collaborations, conversations, and coaching.
I like it.
He's
I like
writing, he's writing this down.
I like it. I've already got it in memory. I like it.
All right, what are they, Marlon? Collaboration, conversation, what was the third one?
Collaboration. What? Collaboration, conversation. What was the third? I forgot the third.
Coaching.
Coaching.
Coaching, all right, so. Well, this whole thing is fascinating. So in your role with another human being who is engaging you and you're coaching them, so they're paying you money to coach them. I can see where they would derive value from that. How do you coach for not failure, shortcomings? How, because I think, remember when I started off, one of my basic concepts was this idea that the current generation is more interested in truth. And then if you go to our generation, we'll always reference that famous line, "You can't handle the truth." And a lot of the things that you have in here really are about truthiness. So sincerity, that's an emphasis on truth. Empathy.
Yep. Vulnerability.
Empathy is a huge subject. Respond. Vulnerability is an emphasis on truth. And then you're an expert. When is this expertise about a subject matter or about the person?
Personal.
It's about having the courage and the self-confidence to stand in your own shoes and provide value that that you're providing to the company.
One of the, whenever I get in trouble and I reflect on it, and I was going through your video and you talked about being in the conference room and only one person was yelling. I was like, oh, I recognize that.
Yeah.
A lot of it is this, you can't stand the truth and you can dish it out, but you can't take it. When I say you, I'm not saying anybody in this call. I'm saying that's the way the sentence is usually structured.
Right.
You, pejorative, can dish it out, but you can't take it. And really, that is a challenge for me personally, and for anybody who's trying to fundamentally alter their station, which in this discussion primarily involves getting into an organization where you receive compensation, right? That's basically the objective.
Right.
Okay, I'm following.
So how do you coach when you're looking at a person and you're like, in your mind, you're like, this is going to be a problem. And you're like, have you considered? And they're like, well, I don't have to change that, or I don't see that. How do you help people see things about themselves that they're not inclined to admit or see? Because a good parent, if you loosely translate parent, the Latin is coach. I mean, it's like a parent necessarily is trying to coax, coach, guide, and there will be circumstances where like, oh, God. All right, so I have to get this person to see something in a different light without creating pushback or conflict where they diminish what I'm saying because it's just an aggravation. All parents go through this.
The hardest thing that you have to learn in this profession is called detached involvement. And that's why parents and good friends
and coaches,
and your favorite cousin, no, not coaches, and your favorite cousin, when they give you advice or want you to do something because maybe what you're doing is, say, it's limiting you, they're getting into your story. So coaches, the hardest thing that we practice is called detached involvement. We don't get into
Attached or
your story.
detached?
Detached.
Detached involvement.
Detached involvement. We don't get into your story. We ask empowering questions for the client to think about, and we give them different tools that they are able to, you know, possibly look at things in a different way.
And you're saying this is a methodology or a
Practice.
system or a
First of
technique?
all, coaching.
And you only
coaching-
introduce the cousin and the friends to set up the contrast. Are you saying that the way your people who love you talk
Okay, I'll
to
give you an example. So, you know, for example, like I talk a lot to my friends. I mean, I also have coaches have coaches. We do a lot
Right.
of bonder coaching. So a lot of the things that I talk about is how can I better support my husband, who spends an immense amount of time with his parents, because my father-in-law is progressing very rapidly in Alzheimer's and my mother-in-law refuses to care for him. And it absolutely is heart-wrenching to see. And, you know, I worry about the amount of time he spends, like, okay, is he paying attention to his job? Like, these are things I can't control, but they're in my head, right? So what I do is I make sure that when I'm being coached, I have new ways that I can have conversations with my husband to support him. And I see an incredible change of the way that we talk about a situation that we have no control over. So I don't know if that helped you in explaining that.
I'm trying to think about with a client.
So with a
And
client,
I'm trying to, it
Right.
seems that
So-
you're
so-
establishing contrast
Right.
between
Right. So-
standard methods of communication and
Right.
involvement with a person's personal story, and then things that you're kind of obligated to do as a coach to really help a person. Because
Mhm.
actually, if a person comes to you, presumably they're feeling confident taking guidance, which is a mature.
They have to do the right. They have to do the work. So in
Right.
contrast to that, with the story I just told you, I also talked to my best friend. I also talked to my mom, right? And because they may have certain experiences, which some people do, they'll just say, oh, you know, that's terrible. And your husband should do X, whatever. So that's not helping me. It's just a little bit of love and support, right? But when I'm with a coach, so to your point, because I gave you also my one thing that I'm working on. If a client came to me, Bern, I need to work on like how to approach, you know, these recruiters and these hiring managers, because for some reason, you know, I got laid off in the middle of May and I got nothing. I'm getting these interviews. I'm not getting past that. Okay, great. So let's unpack this, right? And, you know, quite honestly, it's really just a matter of information. You know, what's important to them? What are the goals? What seems to be holding them back from really diving down and understanding some of the things that they're not addressing. So here's one example that I kind of explained to someone. Someone said to me one time, oh yeah, I coach, I help people like do social media, you know, and I help, you know, and I said, why do you do that? Well, now they have to do it for their job. I'm like, oh, what if they don't want to do it? Well, then I just help them. Okay. So say for example, you have a car and all of a sudden, you know, the right wheel, you know, gets bald, right? So, okay, you know, you wait a little bit, then finally, what are you going to do? You're going to change that tire and get a new tire, right?
Right.
And you're driving along, a couple months later, tire gets bald again, right? Well, you change the tire, but you keep changing the tire. The problem is the wheel alignment is off, right? So what a coach does, the coach unpeels or unpacks things that allow, even though I'm saying, oh yeah, I want to be a VP. Okay, well, let's unpack this. Why are you consistently or constantly getting passed up for, and again, for the things we can control.
Yep.
You may have a really bad boss that doesn't want you to, but what does that person really want? Maybe he says he wants a VP job, or maybe he just wants to be happy. Maybe he just wants to be challenged more. So those are the things that a coach can do during that journey, during that process. Does that make sense?
Wow, that's a lot.
Totally.
This is where being a baby boomer disqualifies me in a lot of different areas. Because my wife sent me a spreadsheet. This is today. It wasn't yesterday, not tomorrow. It's today. And the spreadsheet had rows, and it said CEO, COO, accounting firm, my wife, and production manager, right? And it was a dissemination of tasks. And she sent it to me, and I looked at it. And I said, there's only one thing you can do here, and it's where your boss, the CEO, put the question marks. He's not going to care about anything else. So that's where I'm fascinated by what you're attempting to do, which is to bend time and space. And I think it may be a valuable service, but because I've witnessed the deterioration of I've been present as we destroyed everything. And when I say destroyed everything, what does that mean? Well, it's kind of a holistic perspective, and it's overwrought. And if you were to put it in a short, it would not look right. But there were things that we had that we forfeit, and you can go back and you can find at different points along the road, why do we need a ring on the doorstep? I don't know, because we can't. And then once you do these things, then they change behaviors. How does that relate to this current environment? I think a lot of a challenge that a coach would face is helping a person understand what's being done to them. I like a lot of the things that you're saying, and I'm not challenging them, but maybe I'm overstating how difficult I think it can be in the current environment. I wrote software for a period of time. So when I came off, this was back in 2020, I wrote software because I'd had another turn of the worm. I've always been self-employed since 1996. And I was having issues with contracts. My wife is like, you need to get a job. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go get a job. So what I did is I wrote software, and I would take job descriptions and I would regenerate the job description, and I would always get to the third round and then be eliminated because of my age. So do you talk to your clients about the challenges that they will face with algorithms getting through the front door, which I think is a lot of what Marlon's up against right now, and the relationship between hiring managers and headhunters? Do you go into all that stuff? Because those are major challenges for contemporary job seeking and actually making progress.
Those are challenges, but that's the whole thing, JD. That's not anything that we can control. I mean, you can go down the whole list of
I couldn't control
reasons. No, you can go down the whole list of reasons why you will never get feedback. And a lot of them are legal implications that, if we really did find out why they didn't hire us, we can sue the pants off.
We can sue the pants off of them.
Right.
Same reason we got to let go.
Right. But one of the things you said, I wrote down, what's being done to them. See, that's exactly what a coach can help someone understand.
So that's the truth.
No. Listen, hear me out. being done to them is a very, very dangerous place to be. It's called your victim mode, victim and fighter mode. And that brings a person into a very catabolic state. And when they're in a
This is
catabolic state,
superpower, right?
yeah, when they're in
It's
you
one
are
of your
victim and
superpowers. I
fighter
watched
mode,
that
that's
video.
right. But if you are able to see, and shift your energy into the things you can control, and that's what's so amazing about the coaching experience, is that it's very freeing to know that you have control over
Right.
over a lot of things.
So I
Okay.
I watched all your videos, and you had the 7 superpowers, and I actually took notes. As you know, I take notes. So the victim's superpower was feelings of powerlessness, guilt, self-doubt, low self-esteem, and overwhelming worry. That's what I took out of it. That's where you're feeling like a victim of circumstances, often feeling powerless. And then you had a core action, which was to succumb to negative circumstances instead of taking control. So I'm going to pull something out of my hat here. And then you had your story, which I won't share here. This is the question that I'm asking. If somebody is experiencing powerlessness because an algorithm or artificial intelligence being introduced, or organizational greed, or all of these things that
Can't be
are
controlled.
you keeping them from being interpreted as low self-confidence? But there has to be some truth, which is, yes, this is an uphill slog. And I think that's the truth that people are starting to see. They're starting to see that even if I'm in possession of many of these characteristics, these positive characteristics, and I have high self-esteem, and I have developed expertise, and I am able to be my sincere self, show empathy to others, respond, be vulnerable, and I bring some expertise, I know that mathematically there are things that are against me. Does a coach help them work around those things and keep them from being misinterpreted as things that are wrong with the person?
So if you are truly in victim or fighter mode, you are not recognizing all those wonderful things that you are. And
Yeah, but maybe you're recognizing all of the tremendous challenges that you face.
right. And that's exactly it. The idea of the coaching experience is to get them to not, be at victim or fighter mode, but to shift them up. So if they are completely at victim, it'd be really good to get someone just to fight and be at fighter mode, because that means that there is an idea that there is a possibility for them to win, right? And then once you get there, there's a gateway of bringing them into a possibility of seeing things in a different light. It's all about this. This is a great 360 that I'm just going to make a point right now. You and I both in the beginning, probably before we started recording, we were wondering what pair of glasses that we should put on, right? And it's all
Right. The ones
right?
that Marlon says make me look old. That my
No.
wife likes.
What I'm saying is
I'm
that
old.
we all look through life through different lenses, right? And so what I would do with my client is I would try and work through different tools and techniques to say, you're wearing your victim glasses on right now. I'm going to help you at least get into the fighter mode. We're going to try and get you to see things differently through a different lens. And then as you shift them and you create more opportunity and they do the work, they're able to take steps forward as long as they want to do the work. The thing is with coaching is they create the answers and the path. All we do is guide them.
I think I'm slowly catching up to you. So you call it the victim superpower, which is the first one, and then you have the fighter superpower, which is the second one.
Correct.
And I'm not a coach, but I came into this contemplating that millennials and Gen Z are actually, they're stopping at the victim station. And if I understand correctly, when you say, I don't know if I understand at all, but when you say victim superpower, are you talking about it as a superpower? Or are you talking about the recognition of the possibility of becoming victimized by some of these things?
No, okay. So
And then
yeah.
holding them back. Is that the superpower?
So here's the thing, what I did with that, and it's totally fine. What I did with that masterclass is the coaching program that I went through in IPEC, they talk a lot about energy leadership. So I have actually a master practitioner license to do an assessment on someone and see where their energy is and how they show up. And it's licensed only to IPEC coaches.
So that's
And
the catabolic anabolic energy.
that's the catabolic and anabolic. Now, because in the world that we live in, you know, when you say the word energy, people think of Reiki, people think of yoga, people think of all kinds of things. And a lot of people think woo woo and, you know, catch me on the next, you know, realm of life or something. And so honestly, so what I decided to do is just create like words that they might be able to connect with. And I named the actual energy levels are actually 1 through 7, and they're defined just like I did in the master class. But I created those names because they just represent exactly what the behavior.
You mean the superpowers, you created those?
I created the name.
The names.
So for example,
So they map into the 7 energy levels?
for example, level 1 in energy leadership is victim, and it's only catabolic. Level 2 in energy leadership is level 2 is the fighter. Level 3, which is very interesting, is rationalist, and it's the gateway, because level 3 could actually be anabolic or catabolic. It's the gateway to the anabolic levels, and it goes up to 7.
So rationalists, caregiver,
Opportunist,
opportunist,
visionary, and creator.
I'm kind of liking this because I tend to like things that I can align to what I understand. And my opening gambit was that you need to have some reconciliation of the challenges that are being faced, how you recognize them without having to immediately turn to a real detrimental force in a person's life. And so that's how I'm interpreting what you've now articulated, our energy levels on the curve from catabolic to anabolic. And the victim is simply like, yeah, if we're going to deal with this situation, we need to actually recognize, articulate, and fold in all of the downsides that are being visited on you by circumstances at the universal level, then at the state level, the regional level, and your personal level. And I guess you're saying that as a coach, you're going to help people not fall victim to the thought processes that immediately emanate from that. You're going to move them to the second level, which would be
There's two
find
ways,
a way through
to look at it. Yes.
Not by ignoring them, but by.
Yeah, you can't, there's a couple of ways to look at it. I'll do an assessment so I understand how they actually show up on a given day. And that will tell me what their energetic profile is, but it'll also tell me how much energy is in their stress reactor, right? So when I look at the stress reactor, okay, if it's like a lot of 1 and 2, which most people are, that's fine. But when I look at their energetic profile, if there still is a lot of 1 and 2 in their energetic profile, then that really is, you know, something that, you know, could be helped or guided for them to really less of that. Because the fact is that we don't gain more energy and we can delete energy, okay? So we will have anabolic and catabolic all day long. 1 minute you can be completely anabolic, I mean, literally. And because you can't delete the bad energy and you can't.
So it's like the balloon, it's like that long balloon, you squeeze it here, it puffs up there.
I like that. Yeah. So, yeah, so what
So
you want to
being
do
a
is,
coach is a real challenge, but it also is really helpful.
Very rewarding.
one of the things that I do in my practice is I teach my clients how, from self-awareness and consciousness of what lens they might be wearing, how can they shift themselves in any situation, in a situation with a customer, in a situation, you know,
With
on
a
a
direct
fender
report.
bender, in a
With a direct
situation
report.
with getting an email saying, I'm sorry, we moved forward with another candidate. So it's funny because someone who reported to me, I said, listen, this is the process I used to do for myself. And it's like muscle memory for anything else. I say to myself, this is a process. It's a generated email. I would delete it and I'd go to my spreadsheet and I'd cross it off and put it on my note tab. And it's gone. But most people take a look at that. I think I was telling you guys yesterday about like how I didn't pass a cognitive test. Did I tell you about
Right.
that?
Yeah, you did.
I mean, I think probably 6 months ago, I'm like,
You would have went.
I
Yeah.
would have went right down a rabbit hole with that.
Yep.
It's building these, tech tools that start to retrain your brain that you are good enough. Don't let your subconscious tell you to go down that rabbit hole because it's thinking about something that happened, way back when. And you start to really live in a much higher resonating level of energy. And when you do that, if you listen to that 42 minutes, whatever it was, or 24 minutes, that higher level of energy all of a sudden gives you more brain power.
Yep.
To bring in more opportunities into your life. I mean, it's not even like woo, it's a fact.
Versus the impact of going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
That is exactly, you just described exactly my process, because I'm getting those emails and I go to the spread, rather than go down that rabbit hole, I go to the spreadsheet. Okay, this one's done. I've heard from them. Boom, they're off, and I'm on to the next one. And that higher level of energy is the buoy that helps you through that grind. And coaching, highlighting that, is the tool that is provided to help people do that. I'm so connected to what you just said because I'm living it.
Living it. Yeah. In fact, the blog that I'm putting out today is just describing, like who would a recruiter move forward, candidate A or candidate B. And I give like 2 examples. One, like I had a conversation with someone on the phone yesterday who took up my offer. I'm doing like this minimal offer to help people who've been laid off. And literally when I got on the phone with her, oh, you wouldn't believe this person, this guy. And like, he was horrible. He was a horrible, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sorry,
Right.
that if that is the type of energy she's going to take to a recruiter call, I'm so glad I'm going to have the opportunity to help her. But
Right.
I don't think she was breathing when she was going through this whole thing.
I know
right?
it well.
And it was it wasn't a coaching call. It was an intro, pre-qual call. Okay. All right. Yeah. There's an issue. You need an issue, meaning you need to get into a better place so you can interview better. But I guess my point is it's like, what I don't understand sometimes is it's not just for getting a better job. It's not just for wanting to be better in your job. It's to wanting to have a better life and
Quality of
figure out
life.
what that path is.
Quality
It's
of life.
not the job. I mean, once you let go, once I let go of my 6-figure income, you know what? I had a 6-figure income. I don't need a 6-figure income. And if a 6-figure income is something that I want to create for myself again, that's what I'll find.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you have to start to understand, really what is it that's keeping someone from moving forward? And do they want to do the work?
Yep. And what kind of quality of life do you truly want? We are way over our normal recording time. but with good reason that we're way over our normal recording time, because so much value has been, I know JD's been taking notes, but there is so much value we've extracted from this conversation. I can't
I've
even.
learned so much from you too, as well. I mean, I just think that, you know, as much as we can control, one of the things that I thought maybe if we want to take it as another, subject, is I wrote down something way earlier. For us to create our own space. How can we create our own space? If we really want to make an impact, what is that space where we can make an impact? It may not be where our own baby boomers are still there, right? Baby boomers may not really be in the startup phase right now or in the funding phases. Where can we go in, make a huge impact, and maybe from a contractor basis, and get out and do it again for another company,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So
Well,
I think that would be great to explore.
I've been in different roles for the last 30 years, and for the last decade, I've been in the individual contractor role, because I had a company, I got it up to the multi-million-dollar range. I had, dozens of employees. And I went to my primary customer and I said, do you want to buy my employees? And they bought my employees because I wanted to go into product. And I won't go into any detail on that, except to say that if I were a young person, if a coach said to me, hey, listen, a lot of the things that have been done before, they're not going to produce results for you, I would want to talk to that coach. And the reason is because I can tell you, having lived through it, that things are fundamentally different. Remember when I said a while ago that AI just blew up everything, blew up my stuff, but it blew up my competitors as well? So I have refactored everything and I'm completely redoing it. I started that back in the first quarter. So by the end of this year, my product will be carrying forward the expertise that I've developed, the experience that I've developed, but it will be a completely different platform, and elements that were previously allocated to this method will be switched over to AI. So I think that would be an excellent conversation, and it's a very difficult conversation to have, because the on-ramps are getting narrower. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. And you said earlier too, is it crushing like all different types of professions? And like you can go ahead right now on ChatGPT and you can say, oh, I want to learn more about influential communication. I don't have a voice in my company or with my boss. And they're going to give you like 5 or 6 things. I guarantee you, an individual who is looking to move a path forward can read all that shit they want to read. If they don't understand how to move down that path, they don't understand some of the tools, because you need to get rid of what we call gals, which are your gremlins. What we call gals. Gals are gals. Yeah, they're gremlins, assumptions, interpretations, and limiting beliefs.
I knew it was something. Okay, I'm writing this down.
I know, I'm the acronym, So I'm Gales actually, if you put Gales in there, it'll probably come up. So it's not anything that, is IPEC.
Right.
I mean, I don't think it is. I've heard of Gales like for a long time.
Is it GAILS?
Yeah, Gales. Mm-hmm.
What
Gremlins. Gremlins is your inner critic. It's that bad judge, the good judge and the bad, your gremlin. Yep. So the thing that is always telling you you're not good enough, it's your imposter syndrome. It's all of that. Assumptions. Okay. Hey, I tried to start a business 6 months ago. It never worked. I'll never be able to. That's an assumption because it happened in the past and it was bad. Interpretation. I love this one because interpretation is one person's opinion. And so people think because one person said something,
right,
it's truth. And I hate that. And then the limiting beliefs are all from your subconscious.
Subconscious. Yep.
It's all like, oh, like I didn't have a birthday party for the first 10 years of my life, so I hate my birthday. Things like that. So and that's really those are the keys to unlock. And that's what coaches do.
I couldn't find Gail's.
Oh, so maybe it is IPEC. But
It might be an IPEC thing. What does
yeah,
IPE stand for? IPEC.
the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching.
In coaching.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah.
All right, Marlon, I have a test for you.
I'm not taking it. You got the notes, so you'll give me the notes.
Collaboration, conversation, and what's the third one?
And what, coaching?
Damn, you're good. That was really well done.
I used to be. I
Go
used
out
to be.
Go out on a high note.
I used to be good.
You're the best.
Listen, no, Bern is the best. This was of tremendous value, I know, to you, JD, because I can see it in your face. And this is why, quite frankly, full context, this is why of all the people that day on the up-notch speed dating Zoom call, I instantly
Speed
connected.
networking.
I instantly connected with Bern.
Yeah.
This is why. This is why.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
I have
said,
1,000 more questions, but I'll do everybody a favor and just
we can have another session anytime.
Yeah, we can
We'd love
definitely
to
have
have
another
Bern back.
session.
We'd love to have Bern back.
Yeah.
I think Bernadette sounds like you'd be a great coach for people.
She
Thank
is
you.
a great coach for people.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I would love to, just kind of review some of the parts of the recording and see if, there's some pieces of it, we can just do snippets and get your podcast out there, some coaching snippets from this particular podcast, and, use it for the good, right?
Brand awareness.
Yeah.
Bern, thank you. We've held her long enough. I'm gonna take us out so she can go enjoy her birthday with the card ladies. With the card, I wish I had a table with the card ladies at the table. They're gonna be rocking and rolling. I know that. I know that generation when it comes to cards, man. I love it.
So, yeah, you know what they play? It's called Hand and Foot. It's like something like Hand and Foot. I don't know. It's like canasta. It's like canasta, and I don't know, but the ladies, the ladies are so nice, and they're all like 80 and 90 years old, but they're fun.
I love it. I love it. You're gonna have a great dinner, I'm sure.
Yes, it'll be very nice. Yeah.
Seafood, me, vegan. Where are you?
I don't know. We're going to. It's probably like I don't know. This place is in town, and they're actually a venue for hospitality, like for weddings and stuff. And then once a month, what they do is they just open up on a Friday, and it's whatever he cooks, and he's an amazing cook. So we don't really know. And then, because he has such an incredible following, you just go there and you order, from the blackboard, and then it's
Nice.
hopefully rain. You can go outside and sit, or you can go inside, so it's nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
And this is in Durham, right?
No, it's right here in Hillsborough. So
Hillsborough.
yeah,
Okay.
right here in town. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
It's pizza night here.
Every Friday night for you. Every Friday night.
Every Friday night, pizza night.
You'll like this. I've got to go out today for my better half's end of year at Microsoft, and it's been a long one and a stressful one, because the last 48 hours she's been on the phone talking people off the ledge. Microsoft, dude. They every year they lay off 40,000 and hire 20,000. That madness. And so people are calling her freaked out. Am I going to get whacked? Am I going to have a job? What's my new job going to be? So she's been talking people off the ledge for the last 48 hours. So we're going to go out and have lunch today, outdoors.
Excellent. I love that.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I'm finally going to practice what I'm preaching, get away from the screens, and go out and breathe some fresh air. So I'm going to do that today.
Love it. Love it. Well,
Love
I
it.
can't tell you, it's so great to be with you guys
Bern.
on my birthday. It's going to be one I'll never
An
ever,
honor.
ever
An
forget.
honor. It's an honor for us. Thank you so much. Happy birthday. Happy 4th of July.
Yes.
To the 2 or 3 that are still listening, you know where to find us. Our YouTube channel, our Twitter page, our Spoutable page. Like us.
2
comment
or
on us.
300.
Yes, yes. We're working towards that.
Good.
Comment on us, like us, and most of all, subscribe to us. Thank you
You
both.
can't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Love you
Happy Fourth-
guys.
Happy 4th of July, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.